Welcome to the Negligent Gardener. I'm negligent because my plants have to be pretty tough for them to live. I like to do a lot of things automatically and all that, so I want people to know you don't have to be an expert to be a great gardener, because that's me. I'm just an amateur. I just experiment and do a lot of different things. I want to tell on the camera today is my husband, John. Say hello, John.
Hello, John.
And he's been very helpful to me, and he's been very patient about all the plants that we have in the house.
As long as I don't have to dig any more holes, I'm very happy.
Well, you will.
No.
But not today.
Oh, good.
So today we're doing cuttings, and John has seen a lot of cuttings around the house. He actually has ordered me to have a lot more petunias. And so what I did was I took a lot of petunia cuttings from last summer's petunias, which I bought. I think I started most of them from seed, didn't I?
Most of them, yeah. There was a couple of color combinations, the spotted ones.
Right. We bought a couple different colors that I didn't have, but this I started from seed last year, and then this particular plant is from a cutting from about, I think I did those in about September, and today is December 9th. So this is what, 3 months old?
Right.
Something like that. And this is how far we've come. It's blooming. I love to have blooms all winter. If you're going to have plants, why aren't they blooming? Have something all winter.
Are they under grow lights?
These particular ones, when I repot them, and you'll see where I start them out. When I repot them, I put them under lights, and then when they bloom, I bring them up into the house so we can enjoy the blooms, and then I'll put them back under lights. So today we're going to take some more cuttings of this, because this particular one, I did not have very good viability on these. So I lost probably 75% of the cuttings that I did.
Is that normal?
I estimate 50% that I lose. So that's why I just do a lot of them. There was one that the one cutting that I did of the one petunia, I think I got probably 90% of those cuttings to take, and that was surprising. So now I don't have to take any more cuttings of those, because there were so many that lived, and they're doing really well. This one looks like it might need a little fertilizer. You can see it's a little pale in the leaves, so I'll take care of that soon. But I think I can still take some cuttings from it. I mean, you want to take cuttings from healthy plants that are growing. And so I think that's part of the reason why I took the cuttings a little bit too late in the season last year. The weather was starting to affect them. So this is a young plant. I think I've got a better chance of having these cuttings take. So, any questions you have for me, John?
No, go right ahead.
All right. So, I have these little tiny, I love these things for taking cuttings of little plants.
Because?
Well, they're just so handy, and you can really do some fine work.
Oh, because of the narrow blades?
Because they're so small, yeah. And what I do is I make sure I sterilize them. This is just rubbing alcohol.
Okay.
Make sure I sterilize them. And so I'll bring this back, and I will take a cutting right around where some leaves are. Let's see where we got. I'll take them just below these leaves. So I've got this.
Is it important to do that, to cut it just below where those leaves come out?
Well, I do that because I think you've got a better chance of having roots formed where there's already a some leaves there. You're going to be scarring it when you take these leaves off, because you don't want very many leaves on these cuttings.
Oh, okay.
The plant really needs to spend most of its time putting out roots.
Okay, instead of leaves.
And so what's going to happen is, if you have too many leaves, it can't take up enough moisture to keep those leaves. They're going to look limp. Is the problem, and they can't survive. They can't do that. So I'm going to take up almost all these leaves. No buds. You don't want any buds. Okay,
so right off the top, or flowers, take them right off there.
Yep. And
is it a good time to do this when the flowers are going by? Or
it doesn't really matter. So these are these are,
Hold that closer to the camera, so.
can you see that?
Yeah.
So these are all the leaves I want on this.
Okay. So
Okay.
there's just what, 2 big ones and a little one?
Yeah, there's some little ones here that actually, you know what? I think there's
Is that a bud?
no, I guess it's not.
Oh, okay.
They're just leaves. If I see it, it was very interesting because when I didn't even bother labeling what color I had last time because I didn't really care. I just wanted, because I knew they were going to be blooming before I ever plant them next summer.
Right.
So I didn't really care what color they were. But I did notice that the color, the petunias that were really viable, where I got like 90% survival of those cuttings, they were already blooming before I ever repotted them.
Oh,
That's how viable they were. So, so if I see buds, you know, I'll just nip them off.
Okay.
Okay, and then these, the little clippings, they get fed to my worms.
Ah, the worms in the basement.
The worms in the basement. So those are the worms. Okay, so then I've got that. Then I take cloning gel. This is called rooting gel. It's made by Clonex, this particular one. And you know, there's all kinds of different rooting hormones out there.
Right, because there's powders too, right?
There's powders, there's gels. This happens to be a gel from Clonex. And I like it because it just comes in this little package. I don't have to worry about it drying out because, you know what, I don't do this that much. So it's nice just to have a little bit. It's inexpensive that way. You're not having any waste. So what I did was I just squeezed out a little bit of the cloning gel, the rooting gel. And all I'll do is just dip the very end in the rooting gel. And so you've got it just on the tip there.
Oh, okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah, that's easy.
Okay. Then what I have, and I'm going to bring this up closer so you can see it. So I have what is called a biodome. And this is made by Park Seed Company. And I just have really learned to love this thing. It's just, you can see if I move it, it's floating in water. The styrofoam is floating in water. And as long as it's floating, what it does is it makes sure that these, let me move this, that these little plugs that go in your little styrofoam here is staying just as moist as it needs to.
So it just wicks the moisture up?
So you know what? You don't have to check on it every day.
Right, okay.
And you can be negligent.
Oh, like you.
Yeah.
So does the water...
All it has to do is float.
So there's
I come and I check it.
there's no fertilizer or anything in the water?
I don't. No, I don't fertilize until I repot.
Okay.
And you want to be pretty careful about these young ones. They don't need a lot of fertilizer.
Right, okay.
Okay. So there's a little hole in these plugs. I've dipped it in the rooting gel.
Right.
And these holes don't go throughout the whole thing. There's not a hole in the bottom. There's only a hole in the top. So I just plunk it in there till it stops.
And that's it?
And that's it. And then what I'll do is I just put it, and when I'm doing cuttings, I like to spread them out. But then it just goes plunk right in the hole.
I see.
Can you see that? Okay. And I spread these out because they're cuttings. I also use this, I've started to use this practically, I actually got 2 of them because I just love them so much. But this is where I will do all my seeds, germinate all my seeds.
Germinate all the seeds.
And then I'll put a seedling mat, heating mat underneath it that just warms it just a little bit.
Well, this is how we did corn last year, wasn't it?
No, we didn't do corn that way.
You didn't put them in
No.
that like that?
No.
Oh,
No, corn's too big for these.
I thought you did.
No, no.
Oh, what did we do? Oh, with those were peat pots.
Yeah, we do a lot of experimenting. We experimented pre-sprouting and just putting them in when they were spread. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that when the time comes.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's all I do. And these are, and I'll just kind of show you that these.
Yeah, so you got other things in there besides petunias.
So these tall ones are fuchsias. And actually, you can see they've all rooted.
Yeah, look at the roots. Yeah.
And so these are going to be going in a hanging pot here probably in the next couple of days, is I'll be putting these in a hanging pot. I just actually, I just cleaned the hanging pot today and accidentally overflowed the
I
sink.
know, and flooded the mudroom.
And, you know, I don't ever do that.
No, never.
I'm so perfect that doesn't
Right,
happen.
you're very rarely negligent.
Yes. That wasn't was that negligent?
Yes, that
Oh,
was negligent.
Okay.
So you're
So these fuchsias I'll put in a different pot. They're ready to get out of here.
Right.
And I was careful when I looked in here that there isn't any algae or anything growing in here. So that's why I can just put the petunias cuttings right in here.
I see.
All the rest of these around here, all petunias. This one is the oldest one. Looks like, I'll just do this a little bit closer here so you can see. This one I did I don't know, was maybe a week ago.
Okay.
And I'm just pulling on this gently and it seems like it's rooted. So I'll give that a little bit more time till I can see the roots actually coming out of the plug. And then I'll put that in a pot. So I'll repot that.
And these plugs are popping up in some places because they've absorbed water, and
Yep,
is that why they're doing that?
yep.
So then you got that cover that goes on this thing.
So the cover
Right.
has, let's see if you can see this. The cover actually has vents on it, and these open and close. When I first do the cuttings, I will keep these closed because the cuttings like a moist environment, and that helps because it's not taking up enough moisture to keep those leaves,
Right.
turgid. So it'll take some moisture from the environment to help that.
And you'll put this under the lights.
And then, no, I won't put this under the lights.
gonna put this out in the sun?
I actually put this by the window.
Okay.
So that, because under the lights, I have the lights down in the basement. And even though I check on those every day because I'm not as negligent as, you might seem to think I am. I like to have these up where I'm walking around and seeing them a lot more often than just once a day.
Okay.
So I'll just put these in the window. This time of year, like I said, it's December. So this time of year, it's not going to make a big difference. The sun is not that bright. It's not going to burn them. They just need to stay in this environment until they're rooted. Then I'll put them in a pot and put them under lights. The fuchsias, because they tend to like a little shadier
Right.
anyway, I'll just put them in a hanging pot in the window. And by the time summer comes around, they should be all blooming and
Great, then you can hang them outside.
hang them outside.
Great, and not have to spend a fortune.
Right. After I herded them off.
Right.
Right.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
How'd you end up learning how to do this?
Well, the one we did was you and I went to a little Master Gardener conference in Idaho.
In Idaho. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and we did rose cuttings. And because I am not only negligent, but I'm also very cheap, one of my goals is not to have to buy plant material every year. So, which is why I do cuttings.
And that rose, when you brought it home, was no more than...
I think I brought home 4 rose cuttings. 2 of them lived, and we now have them planted outside, and they are ridiculous.
Well,
They're huge.
The one is taller than me.
Yeah,
It's
I have to keep pruning it back because it gets so tall.
6'2", 6'3", 6'4", and in height.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It's just astonishing how
Yeah.
big that thing is.
And it's just so neat that it just started as a little cutting like this.
And that was only 3 years ago.
I think it was 3 years ago.
3 years ago. This thing is ridiculous.
It stayed in the house all summer. Planted it the next.
in spring.
I'm sorry. We did it. We had the class in the summer. I kept it in the house for a whole year. Planted it the next summer. So really, they're only 2 years old.
Right.
Both of those. One of them is just traditionally smaller.
Right.
But yeah, well, when we get to summertime and they're doing stuff, we'll do a little video of of those.
Great.
So, yeah, and you don't mind me doing all these new plants?
As long as I don't have to dig more holes.
You will.
Oh. Okay.
and they'll have to be really perfect.
That's right. My holes are always perfect.
Because I'm the negligent one. I don't dig good holes. So I need an expert hole digger.
Such a liar.
Well, I think that's good for today.
Good.
Please feel free to comment, ask questions, but always remember, you don't have to be an expert in this. And I'm certainly not an expert. I'm just telling you what I do. You're going to find your own way of doing this. But I will say that this biodome really does help. So everybody have a great Christmas, because it's December. And propagate well.
Ho, ho, ho.